Welcome to our new house! Yay! This is only a little part of it and everything else is so awesome and we're so happy to be here. If you didn't know, our last apartment got flooded and we had to stay with some family for a couple months and we finally found the perfect house for us. So happy to be here. That said, I'm here to talk about a book that I just finished and it is The Girl on the Train. And this is by Paula Hawkins. It's gonna get comfortable because I have a lot to talk about. I am excited to be talking about this book because it's all I've been thinking about for the past 4 days. This is the quickest I've ever read a book. There was a couple years in between me leaving high school and now where I just hadn't picked up a book out of pure enjoyment for myself, and I really did lose my fire for reading and it made me really sad. So last year I went through all the books that I hadn't read yet that I owned and I started reading a couple, and I am so glad I'm back. I'm so glad I picked this guy up. When I was growing up, I had always wanted to be a writer. I was just reading nonstop and typing on the computer, coming up with all these creative stories. So it really feels like I've found my way back home with reading again. That all said, I want to delve into The Girl on the Train. I have a lot of mixed reviews about this book. I was first introduced to this book in 2016 when it was made into a movie. I had several people tell me to read this book. It's so good. It'll keep you on your toes. You'll be flipping pages. So I picked it up last year and I just now got to reading it, and I feel like this was one of those books. It was built so much up by so many people and was put on such a high pedestal that I had such high expectations for it, and I freaking hate that. So anytime I've been talking about this book over the last couple of days, I've been really realistic with people on how I've been feeling about it. So what I did today was, after I finished reading the book last night, I went to sleep with a clear mind and woke up this morning and looked up sort of book club questions that people have made for The Girl on the Train. And I found a couple of sites that had some pretty solid questions, so I compiled them together. The questions I will be using are from 2 different sites. The first one is Shmoop, and the second one is from a blogger. Her page is called This Beautiful Day. I will have both of these guys linked underneath this video, so you can check out those questions and answer them in the description. I would love to start a discussion underneath this video. I love chatting with you guys in the comments. It makes my day, and I love to see what you have to say, especially because I'm talking about something pretty intriguing. I really want to hear your thoughts on this, so please feel free to comment down below. I have a feeling this video is going to be pretty long, so thank you if you watch this all the way through. Also, before I jump into this first question, I want to obviously forewarn you, this is going to be spoiler central, so if you're planning on reading this book, if you haven't read it yet, and you don't want any of the plot spoiled, I recommend you just stop this video, pick up the book and read it, and then come back and take a look at what I have to say about it. Jumping into the first question, here we go. This is from the Shmoop site. The question is, why does Paula Hawkins, the author, choose the 3 narrator characters she chooses? Rachel, Megan, and Anna. What do these 3 women have in common? How are they different? Do you wish she had included other perspectives? So Rachel, Megan, and Anna all have had somewhat of a sexual or love interest relationship with Tom. That is one major thing they all have in common, so it makes sense why Paula chose to focus on those 3 characters. He's fucked with their minds the most, so why not delve into their perspectives solely? Makes sense. I understand why she chose them. They also all fell for Tom's lies. Like I said, he fucked them both physically and mentally. Tom really did play some mind tricks on these girls. They all fell for it. They all believed him. It's ridiculous. Not only did they allow Tom to lie to them, but they all lied to themselves. And that is in a future question. I will get more into how they do that. I feel as though they all lack some sort of self-worth. They all lack a conscience. They all jump on these decisions without thinking them through. Especially, of course, Rachel, the main character, the lead of the book. She gets drunk and just goes around town and, you know, just gets herself involved in the situation that has somewhat nothing to do with her. Megan gets into stuff with other men. She just jumps into new sexual relationships without even thinking. She just does it. I feel like Anna jumps to accusations, specifically against Rachel. She just assumes things a lot. I feel like the three chicks in this book are more similar than they are different. I feel as though the differences between them are fairly obvious, so I won't really go through those. I did think their similarities were pretty interesting because it wasn't something I was really thinking about throughout the book. As far as different perspectives I would have liked to see, that is one of my problems with this book, is that it only focused on Anna and Rachel and Megan, and I really don't like any of them. I had a difficult time liking a lot of the characters in this book. Perspectives I would have really liked to see were from Kamal, who was Megan and Rachel's therapist. He was one of my favorite characters if I had to choose in the book, for sure. I feel like he had the clearest mind. I also really would have liked to see the detectives' perspectives. I felt really limited in the book solely looking at Rachel. I would have really liked to see more contrast between her and maybe a male character or just anyone else except her. I felt like she kind of wallowed in self-pity a lot, and that kind of took away a lot of the plot for me. The second question is coming from This Beautiful Day blog. On the topic of motherhood, it defined the success or failure of the women in the book. What do you think the author was trying to say? How do you feel about the fact that the women were unemployed and relying on their husbands for income? This was a question I actually had a difficult time answering when I was thinking about it. I don't feel like the last question is entirely true, that they all relied on their husbands for income, because when Rachel was with Tom, she was working in London, and she talked about it several times, how she went on the train and went into London, and she didn't actually lose her job until she was out of the house and divorced from Tom. So I don't think that's necessarily true. Rachel even talks several times about how they both invested in furniture. She talks about how, it must feel awful for Anna to sit on her stuff, so I don't think Rachel was really relying on Tom for income purposes. I think she did end up relying on him for self-worth clarification or failure and how it defined the women based on how they were mothers. I don't think that the author really pinpointed that herself. Ryder's just running around, sorry, he's distracting me. I think she let the characters speak for themselves. Megan felt let down, like she was a failure because she accidentally killed her child. Rachel felt like a failure because she could not have a child with Tom. It wasn't necessarily that she couldn't have kids at all. It might have been because Tom was getting all his sperm out and frickin' Anna. The sperm count was probably lower whenever they did have sex to try to have a kid. That probably was the reason, realistically, that Rachel couldn't have kids. Fuck Tom, man. Anna probably felt success in having a kid because she got the husband, she got the kid, she got the house, even though she didn't really like it, but she felt as though she won against Rachel, and she claimed that she enjoyed that, which is awful. That's something Megan also talked about too, is how she wanted to feel wanted. She liked the excitement of an affair, which I just think is so crazy. This is something people actually think. People actually want to have affairs. They like the excitement. They like sneaking around people and betraying people. Boy, am I glad I'm not like that. It makes me feel sorry for those people. You must be such an unhappy person that this is what you fish for, to feel joy and excitement in your life. All right, question 3. This is from Schmoop. Rachel initially imagines Megan and Scott as Jess and Jason, an imaginary couple with a perfect life. What does she get wrong about their marriage? And what does she get right? The first and most obvious thing that Rachel gets right about Megan and Scott's marriage is the fact that Scott really did care for her. There were times where he definitely showed signs of mental abuse, and before she left, a little bit of physical abuse for sure. What I thought was interesting is the author threw that in there in the end of the book, but he did the exact same sort of physical abuse to Rachel when she last visited him. He threw her up in that room, he pulled them both by the hair. So I'm wondering if those residual feelings he had with Megan, before she left, were coming back up with Rachel when he was drunk and she was getting him upset. I'm sure he was feeling the same way. That aside, I do think he really truly did care for Megan. That is something she definitely got right when she was observing them as the perfect couple. I think he did care for her. I think deep down Megan really did care for him, and a past Megan would have been able to have a good marriage with him, but because she just had some bad situations when she was 15, and losing that kid really screws you up. Like, situations like that, it's nuts how much something like that can affect you later on in your life. What I think Rachel was wrong about was she always envisioned Scott as this super protective husband, and he was always looking out for Megan. I don't think that he was that protective of Megan. I do think that he was a little manipulative and possessive, and of course abusive, like I just talked about. Megan was not committed as Rachel had perceived her to be. She was not the perfect wife herself. She had 2 affairs, and who knows how many more. Question 4. This is from the blog. Do you people watch the way Rachel does? Do you ever concoct elaborate stories about people you see every day? Would you ever want to meet these people and truly get to know them? I wouldn't say I concoct stories about people that I know personally every day or that I see every day. There is something that came to mind when I was reading this question, and that was back when I was in high school. I lived in Norfolk, Virginia, in this town called Ghent. It was a really pretty historic town. One thing that was pretty consistent throughout Ghent were the houses and the buildings. Everything just looked so cool. And I remember when I was in high school, I would walk my dog and just go on walks with me and him, and I would pass by houses in the neighborhood, and I would just picture like what the houses looked like on Christmas Eve, and picture like what my life would be like in the house, not necessarily the people's lives of that house, but I would picture myself in the house with that person's things, if that makes sense. That sounds a little creepy coming out, but I did love looking at what people did with the houses and how they decorated them. And I love just imagining what my future house would be like. I highly recommend, if you're ever in Virginia, DC is awesome and Northern Virginia is great, but if you ever have a chance to come towards like the Hampton Roads area, definitely check out Ghent. That is a really cool town that has a lot to offer, and there are some pretty cool people there too. Question 5, this is from the blog as well. Rachel experiences a lot of what if moments, like what if she had confronted Megan when she saw her kissing another man? Would this have changed anything? What other what if moments haunt Rachel? So the main thing that gets Rachel jump started and involved in the whole investigation of Megan is she sees Megan with her therapist Kamal in the patio area that she passes by on the train every day, and she sees them kiss and is shocked that the perfect couple is not perfect as she envisioned in her head, and that Megan is not this amazing committed woman, that she's having an affair, which really stinks, because when I had pictured reading this book, when people talked about how Rachel saw something when she was on the train, she saw something happen, I was thinking like she saw part of the crime. She saw like her husband hiding his wife away, or like part of the murder, or you know what I mean, like something way crazier than, oh, she caught Megan in an affair. Like, I was pretty aware that Megan was having an affair, so it wasn't as shocking as I had wanted it to be. It wasn't what I envisioned this book to be. But I guess that's similar to Rachel with her envisioning this couple. It's not what she thought it would be. Confronted her, I don't think anything would have happened. I almost feel like this was sort of fate, like all of this was going to trickle into something. I don't think that if Rachel had jumped out and said something to Megan right then, and Megan was getting herself into all these situations, Tom was getting himself into all of these tricky situations. I do believe in karma. I do believe that if you do bad things, it does come back to you. I'm gonna read what I wrote down here because I liked what I said. This was fate in a way. Just like she, Rachel, was not the reason Megan died by the hand of Tom. Tom felt threatened. Meg felt misunderstood. They snuck around. They got heated. Tom beat Megan to death. Megan died along with her unborn child. What other what-if moments haunt Rachel? What if she had been more upfront when going to the police and she hadn't done those little white lies? What if she had just laid everything out of the table, been honest about the person she is? The case would have been easier to solve. but the book would have been a lot shorter. It would have made Rachel a more confident and more likable character. What if she hadn't been drunk the night of the murder? What if she had been completely sober? She probably wouldn't have even gone down to the train station and wanted to see the couple the night of the murder. So she wouldn't have felt the urge to get herself involved in it, and wouldn't have felt the urge to find out what she could not remember from that night. What if she hadn't been drunk towards the end of her marriage? What if she had a clear mind during her marriage? Would she have seen what Tom was doing? Would she have noticed that he was manipulating her? Would they have still been married? Would she have married him at all? What if she'd had the baby with Tom? If she had had the baby with Tom and that worked out, would she still be with him? Would he feel the need to stay with her? Is that why he feels that way towards Anna? Does he actually love Anna? I don't know. Tom is a pretty fucked up person. I don't know. Good lordy, this is gonna be a long video. All right, intermission over, I'm back. This is question 6. The last 2 questions were from Schmoop. This question is from the blog This Beautiful Day. On the topic of lies, we all lie to ourselves a little bit, but do you have an example of a real life lie gone too far? Do you think deep down the women in the novel knew the lies they were telling themselves? I can't really think of an example where I lied and I let it go on and it became a bigger situation. I'm usually a pretty upfront person as far as the women, Anna, Rachel, and Megan, knowing that they were lying to themselves. I think they were fully aware of that they were fibbing to themselves. I'm gonna read what I wrote here. Megan lied to herself in the fact that she told herself that her daughter wouldn't come up into her present life and her future, that she could just bottle it away and it wouldn't be a problem and she could live her life normally and it not be an issue for herself or for other people and not come up again. Rachel was lying to herself in that she needs liquid courage to drink alcohol in order to get through uncomfortable and nerve-wracking situations. I also think Rachel in part tends to lie to herself and blame her alcoholism and her shitty situation on the fact that she got divorced and her marriage didn't end up right and perfect, and that's why she's so messed up in the head and just drinking all the time and not getting her life back together. That relates to real life world people. You are the person that dictates your life. It's how you react to things in life that determine what happens to you and how you go about things and how you feel about things. And Anna lies to herself. I think Anna lies to herself in the fact that she feels like she wants to get rid of Rachel and wants to be in a new place and that will fix everything. I think we all know full well here that both of those things happening would not have helped her. Tom was a killer and a psychopath, and if she had gotten rid of Rachel, would she have ever found that out on her own? She found his freaking phone and knew something was wrong and threw it and didn't act on it at all. Anna is weak as well, just as weak as Rachel is, maybe even more so. Which, towards the end when they both find out that Tom's the killer and they're in the house and Tom comes home, it almost seems like Anna is fully aware that this would happen and that she's in on him killing Rachel and wants it to happen. Even when she goes up to the room with the baby, when Tom tells her to go upstairs and he's gonna finish Rachel or whatever he's gonna do, it felt like she had known that this was a thing all along, that Tom was crazy and she was feeding into it. She even said she was afraid of herself and that he should be afraid of her or something along those lines. That really threw me off and confused me. Like, what the hell is actually going on in this book? Here's all the information about what happened all in the last 10 pages. So yeah, that was a bit overwhelming, confusing for me. So I was a little disappointed in that. My camera's not focusing. Focus on my face. There we go, there we go, there we go. All right. This question comes from Schmoop. Do you believe that the girl on the train accurately depicts the physical and emotional consequences of alcoholism? Absolutely. I have only ever blacked out once in my life, and it was a while ago. It was for sure one of the times I felt the absolute worst in my entire life. I just remember hating myself in the morning, never ever doing it again. I've never drank that much ever again in my entire life, and I plan never to. My main issue with it was that I couldn't remember anything. I think that's something the author does really well in this book, is she depicts how it feels to be that drunk and the consequences of it the next day and how you feel and how you loathe yourself. I said it feels like you cannot remember shit. Your memories feel like a slushy, foggy blur. You feel like you are mixing reality and your dreams. I can imagine that alcoholism feels like blacking out all of the time. Like, you can't decipher what happened this day and what happened the next day. And that's why people with alcoholism tend to be pretty selfish or just really depressed and just not care about anything else, because I don't think they physically can. They're drunk. It's hard to have emotions like that and to be selfless when you can't even remember your last thought, your last memory, what happened last night. And in the end, that affects your relationships with people, just like it affected Rachel's relationships with Tom and everyone else in the book. Also, I feel like if you are an alcoholic, people feel entitled to have negative views of you. And they feel like they're entitled to not like you and to assume you're a worthless piece of crap. And that's what a lot of people did towards Rachel in the book. They didn't see her as someone who needed help. They just saw her as someone who was a loser, drunk all of the time, and worthless. This next question comes from Schmoop. How does Paula Hawkins, the author, withhold information from the reader to build suspense? This was for sure my main problem with the book. Felt like there was a huge section of the book where we're just like, okay, Rachel's drunk and she keeps going to the train station and keeps bumping into the same people and making the exact same mistakes over and over and over again, keeps having the same conversations, the same thoughts, I can't remember anything, blah, blah, blah. And then in the last section of the book, the author throws everything at us. I don't like that she keeps Tom in the background so much. Almost entirely. Like, he's in the book, but not a lot. Scott and Kamal are in the book way more than Tom is. Maybe that was her intention, was to make it more shocking, because you wouldn't expect Tom. They didn't even talk about him that much. I would have never thought of that. But I didn't like that. I would have liked more build-up, more guessing, because I would have still been tied between him and Kamal and Scott, or at least I think I would have. If there had been more information on Tom, I still think I wouldn't have been sure if he was the person. I would have liked to see more of his relationship with Megan. The reason why is because I think the ending would have been more believable to me. This question comes from This Beautiful Day blog. Did you know who the killer was before it was revealed? Who did you suspect it was leading up to the end? What surprised you the most? Were you satisfied with the ending? Was it obvious at some point? Obviously, I wasn't satisfied with the ending at all. In the beginning and the first half of the book, I really did think Rachel was the one who killed Megan, especially because she couldn't remember things. I felt like that made it really obvious, like, okay, she can't remember anything. She remembers having blood on herself and that she was there and that she might have saw these people, so obviously she's the one that killed her, duh. I like that it didn't end up being her. That made me a little happy, okay. At least it wasn't an obvious ending. After I had ruled out that it wasn't Rachel, I had a feeling that maybe Megan was still alive, that she was hiding away, specifically with her baby daddy. His name's flashing right now because I can't remember it. Also, what I thought was weird is you kind of assume that she's pregnant with Tom's baby in the end because they did the DNA test and found out that it wasn't Kamal or Scott, her husband's baby. So you're like, okay, it's gotta be Tom's baby because they don't talk about any other affairs, and it makes it seem like she didn't have any other ones. It was just Kamal and Tom. But if that's the case, she doesn't go and see Tom at all in the end before she talks to him. She makes a point of saying that they hadn't seen each other for a while, that it had been since April since she had pulled the phone out. So that means that would make her April, May, June, July. I guess that would make her 4 months. I guess you aren't really showing by that point, but still, I'm just like, 4 months without a period, and you're just now realizing you're pregnant with Tom's baby? This is the last question, and it comes from This Beautiful Day. Why do you think the book captivated so many people and drew the reader in? What was it about the writing? Do you think it was a well-written book? What drew people in to this book and the movie is that it was freaking relatable. Like the question before, I've definitely people watched and imagined myself in someone else's life. That's something pretty common with human beings. What if I had been watching this person absent-mindedly all this time, and then something had happened to them and I would have never known about it. When I lived in my apartment in Richmond, there was a time where I was sitting in our back room with Chance, and we had this door that like led to a back patio and like a little fire escape that you could go down and walk into the street, and a dog with the police nudged the door open and came into the apartment with a police officer, and they like apologized. They're like, so sorry, but do y'all mind if we come in and search? There has been a missing girl and they've led it to this building. And I was like, what the heck? Are you kidding? I've lived here all this time. I've probably seen this girl like a million times in the street. You just never think about stuff like that. So I think that is definitely what drew people in, that they could be witnessing something and not even freaking know it. I did think it was well written. I just think it lacked a bit. Like I said before, I felt unsatisfied. I went into a lot of that before. I even flipped the page expecting more, but it was just like the author's notes at the end. I was like, dang it. One thing I do like that the author did was she played on Rachel's alcoholism and the fact that she had a bad memory. I liked specifically about her memory point that we found out that Tom was actually switching it around and like hardcore abusing her and taking advantage of her, because I'm sure that this is something that happens to several abusive couples. And I end with saying I love Kamal and Megan's sections of the book. That was probably the best parts of the book, the most well written. I would have really liked to hear what he had to say. I would have liked to see him in his own mind, but I didn't write the book, Paula Hawkins did, and I'm glad that I read it. And thank you for bearing with me in this video. This is probably going to be like a 30-minute long video. One thing I'm considering doing is starting podcasts. So if you enjoyed this video, and my chair is spinning, if you enjoyed this video and liked this discussion sort of style, let me know down in the comments. Like this video. I'm really interested in starting my own podcast. I love watching them. I'm obsessed with Jenna Marbles at the moment. I've been watching her and Julian's, Jenna and Julian podcast. Absolutely love them. So hopefully that will be something I do in the future. Thank you so much for bearing with me through this video. I hope you found it interesting. Oh, one question I have is, I haven't watched the movie yet. I'm probably gonna watch that tonight. Do you feel like the movie and the book matched up well? Were you disappointed in the movie or disappointed in the book like I was? Thanks so much, guys. Thank you especially if you've never watched my videos or been to my channel before. My name's Zoe. Hi, how's it going? Welcome. Please subscribe. I would absolutely love it. Thank you so much for taking the time and watching this. All right, y'all. Peace. I'll see you in my next video. Bye. Hey, mister. Are you so glad I'm done? I know you are. You're so cute. I love you.